into it. It's crime o'clock, yeah, feel that sound. Typically unique when the truth comes out. Tick tock, won't stop, let the facts talk. Pull up real close, yeah, it's crime o'clock. Clock, clock, yeah. Typically new, neon signs glow, brick wall behind me. Headlines loud, but they never define me. They rush the story, skip the proof. I slow it down, let it show the truth. Files on deck, read every line. Timestamps matter, so does time. If it don't fit, I don't force the frame. Ask one question, whole story change. No fear my voice, no need to shout. Paper speaks when you read it out. If the math's off, I'll circle twice. Truth ain't loud, but it ain't nice. Yeah. Read it again. It's crime o'clock, yeah. Feel that sound. Typically unique when the truth comes out. Tick tock, won't stop. Let the facts talk. Pull up real close, yeah. It's crime o'clock. It's crime o'clock. Read it again. They sell a narrative if I sell receipts. Courtroom quiet, but the pages speak. Word for word, no added spin. Let it stand, yeah, let that sink in. Screenshot save, timelines tight. Missing pieces keep me up at night. If they say alleged, I say why. If they say case closed, I say try. No rush here, we do it right. Truth don't bend for the likes of hype. If you came for noise, you in the wrong spot. This is evidence, this is crime o'clock. Clock, clock, clock. Stay with me. This isn't background noise. This is pattern recognition. This is documents. This is crime o'clock. It's crime o'clock, yeah. Feel that sound. Typically unique when the truth comes out. Tick tock, won't stop. Let the facts talk. Say it with me now. Crime o'clock. It's crime o'clock. Typically unique. It's crime o'clock. Yeah. If you're here, you're early. If you're listening, you're paying attention. Show starts now.
Welcome back to Crime O'Clock on Typically Unique. Why am I so small over there? Because we've been watching trials. That's why. How is everybody this evening? It's a nighttime show. Hello, hello. My schedule is off schedule this week. I apologize for that. Oh, thank you, G Bean. I appreciate that. It actually was pouring rain here and I got caught in that a little bit, but yeah, I got that shopping therapy today. I actually didn't get too much for me. My mom and I had to get dresses for my nephew's wedding, so that was the mission, but I found stuff for Carlos, so he made out today. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So since I've been missing my daytime lives, I wanted to come on, and I saw everybody in the Discord like talking about the Turvey interview, and we've had Turvey, we've had Whitcomb, we've had Cy Ray, and every time I feel like one of them comes out and talks, it's like, who do we believe? What are they saying? Yeah. So everybody seemed pumped up about what Turvey was saying. I did go preview it, and we call him scorched earth over here in our household. He just goes, he don't care. He just says it. Scorched earth. What color? Or for me, is that question for me? What color? We are not playing in the Discord. I'm telling you, I get every time someone posts a comment, I get a notification. So you guys, my phone is like bling, 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 bling. But I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. There's a lot of good information in there. Hi, Michelle Turner. Hello, hello. Share this out, you guys. I feel like everybody's watching this tonight, but hey, we're going to over here too. Everybody does it differently, right? So, hi, Blue Devil. G Beans in the house. Oh, there's Jen. I was just going to say, where has Jen been? Hello, accomplished day. I hope you had a good day, Jen. All right, you guys. So, two things. Let me start with this. While I'm pulling it up. So there were a couple things that Chris Whitcomb had said in his interviews. He was on the Custody Queens Monday, Lana's yesterday, Truth and Transparency yesterday. And I couldn't find the clip. One of the things Christopher Whitcomb said, this is going to lead us into Turvey. One of the things he was saying that I couldn't find the clip, I couldn't remember which show he said it on, and someone was talking about it in the Discord, was he wrote 17 chapters. Let me show you guys something. He said, read all 17 chapters. I wrote 17 chapters. So let's look. Turn on. There we go. There we go. 1 second. Hello to everybody joining in. Christy, Lexi. Hello, Lexi. Welcome in. Okay. He said, read all 17 chapters. I wrote 17 chapters. Okay, here is the table of contents. Part 1, 1 through 7. Okay. Where was part 2? Oh, part 2 starts with chapter 6 and 7. Okay. I got to pull this up so you can see it. All right. 15 chapters. Now there is a prologue, and there is no epilogue. Can't count that. So why did I know I heard it. Am I crazy? Did any of you, I know Mama Bear of 3 heard it because she pointed out in the Discord. Michelle Turner, yes, I went over the timeline of this book deeply. Do you see my book? Look at my book. Look at these. I like every part, like Yessie, BK, I tagged everything in this book. But yes, that's a good idea to just completely go over the book. That's a good idea. Why did he say 17 chapters? So the first thing I thought was he had to take a couple chapters out. Do you remember that? He said, I couldn't publish those. There were issues with the information in there that he had to take out. I believe one of those chapters, the word on the street, one of those chapters was Brent Kohberger information. So I wonder if that was just his coded way to say, he did write 17 chapters, but we're not allowed to see all of them. And is he saying that left out information is key to the case? I don't know. That's all speculating because that's how he put it. So where are those 2 other chapters? Yeah, he needs to get those out here, Mr. Whitcomb. Who's got those 2 other chapters? Okay. Oh no, I didn't mark the page that I was on. So, oh man, that's a bummer. Oh wait, I know where it's at. Okay, here's the other thing I wanted to show you. And this is going to lead us to Turvey. So that was just something that I picked up on as I was listening to him the past couple days. And then I did clip this. So we're going to listen to this clip real quick just to let you know that I really heard him say this.
Any expert on your show and ask them the same question.
Did it just mute? What, Holt? Did you hear me explain the chapters? Did you hear me explain the 17 chapters? Whoops. Yes. Okay, so after that, we're going to segue into what Chris Whitcomb says about Dr. Turvey. So I was just saying that I actually have this clip so that I can actually show you what he said on the custody queens. Okay, so we're just going to listen to this real quick.
That is one type of DNA analysis which leads through investigative genetic genealogy to a match of sorts. That is very different. And bring any expert on your show and ask them the same question. It is not the same as saying this DNA belongs to this on a knife sheath or on a gun or on a whatever else belongs to this individual. The FBI put together CODIS so they could do that. The Consolidated DNA Index System, whatever it stands for. I think that might be what it stands for, which is a fingerprint match, but it's DNA. Bill Thompson never said that. Ann Taylor asked about that in the Franks hearing, and I can tell you what she said, what they said, and what we now know to be the fact, but you got to read the book or you got to get the Franks hearing. Read their words, not mine. Don't pay attention to what I'm saying. Read the defense examination of the prosecution's report. It's in the book.
Okay. First of all, the Franks hearing was denied. So he's talking about the hearing where they were asking for the Franks hearing, right? Am I correct about that? Hitler wouldn't allow the Franks hearing. He didn't allow anything. He didn't allow anything. So he's probably talking about the hearing where they were asking for the Franks hearing. And I believe part of that was private, so we're not allowed to see that, although transcripts might have come out about that. So he's saying to look at that report. Okay, I don't have that pulled up right at the moment. Then he says, or look at the investigation. Wait a minute, how did he say it? Look at the defense's review of the prosecution's investigation. And it's in the book. In the book, in the book, in the book. Okay. I get it. He's an author. It's not easy to sell books as an author. I get it. So I was like, okay, like clearly I've read this book cover to cover, and but when you read it, it's pretty well divided out, but the chapter headings are very cryptic. So it's not like it says chapter blah, blah, blah. The defense's review of the prosecution. It's not titled that way, okay? So chapter 10, the title is Halloween, Victimology, Terrible Toothache. So that's the title. But in that chapter, that is where I believe he's referring us to. And it starts off talking about hearsay, and then it starts talking about all the problems in the case. And this is where they're going through, and like it says exactly this: careful analysis of this investigation shows that everything changed once Kohberger became the focus of attention. And that's exactly what you're talking about, G. Bean. They just like stopped everything, focus on him, disregard all the other unknown male DNA, disregard all the suspects, people of interest that we were spending tons of time and resources and money on. Like, just stop all that. Now we've got this guy over here that wasn't matching anything you were looking into. Anything they were looking into before Bryan Kohberger had nothing to do with Bryan Kohberger, right? Obviously. And so then he just goes on. So I believe page 256 is exactly where Christopher Whitcomb is referring us to. Now, this ties right into Dr. Turvey, because everything in there is from Turvey's report. Okay? It talks about the hair. It talks about the bracelet, the one in the room, not the one over at the Whites, the one in the room, broken bracelet in the room, in the spare bedroom, the blood-soaked jacket. It talks about Molly McMichaels, the DoorDasher. It talks about Justin Nadeau, who we just got his interview, the dog walker. That door was open for, it sounds like, almost a full 2 hours in the morning. So who opened the door? Because when Dylan ran down to Bethany's room, did she run past an open front door that she could have ran out of and gone for help? How'd that door get open? Let me know in the chat. Do you think the door was open all night? You can put all night, or do you think someone opened it? All night, or someone opened it like later? Someone opened it later, towards the morning hours. What do you think happened with that door? So, yeah, this leads us, Chris Whitcomb just coming out and giving these interviews, pointing everybody to look at what Brent Turvey's saying. Look at what Brent Turvey has found. And these guys they are on a mission to call out this case. And call out this case is exactly what Brent Turvey is going to do, or has done in his latest interview. Let me look at the date of this. This was done, wait a minute, today, 8 hours ago. All right, so let's let's get into this. Are you clocked in, everybody? Are you clocked in? Let's see what you guys are saying. Opened after the murders, after the cleanup. You guys are adding details. I love it. I love adding details. After the cleanup. Oh, someone thinks all night. That's all right. Someone opened it later, after the murders. Instead of lock in, we're going to clock in, you guys. All right, so this show is Crime and Justice. It is affiliated with a Fox News network, and there's a couple other channels it's affiliated with. Donna Rotuno, is that how you say her name? Rotuno. I believe she's a defense attorney. She hosts the show. And she's going to talk to Dr. Turvey. I did think he talks to her with a different level of, I don't know if it's a level of respect. It kind of comes off that way. I think he speaks a little differently than when like he comes on a more independent journalist YouTube channel.
This is Crime and Justice. I'm Donna Rotuno.
Crime and Justice.
Bryan Kohberger is jockeying to take back his guilty plea, saying it was hinged on false promises and blatant disinformation. The change of heart came after experts have publicly questioned the evidence post-plea deal. Back with me today is Dr. Brent Turvey, a crime scene analyst expert who was hired by the Kohberger defense team. I think in light of the fact that Bryan Kohberger has filed paperwork under a post-conviction theory to withdraw his plea, I think this conversation is going to be enlightening, and I can't wait to get into it. Talk to me about how you felt when you heard that Mr. Kohberger had filed this petition to withdraw his plea, and what was your reaction when you first heard that news?
Well, there's a number of ways that I reacted to it, but my first initial reaction as a person, as somebody who works in the justice system and observes it, was relief. I was relieved.
Oh, wow. I did not hear this part. First question out the gate. How did you feel, Dr. Turvey, when you first heard the news that Bryan Kohberger asked for post-conviction relief, from the plea deal? He was relieved. Wow. Relieved. Hello, everybody coming in. Hey, Sally Port, KT06. Hello. Bianca, the beautiful Bianca Jane. Thank you so much for being here. And Christy's Chaos. Thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you. Wade Bird. Let's see. We don't have any documentation before 9 a.m., do we? But you physically see a girl walking her dog shortly after 7 a.m. What did her report say? The one guy on the video just said 9 to 10. Ooh, good questions.
Mainly because of the way of what he said in his filing. There's some important facts and details came out that really haven't been covered at all. I mean, I want to take a moment to talk to you like a person, like you're a human being. I'm a human, you're a human. We both have human emotions and have human responses to these things. And it's been, the word I would use is disgusting. It's been disgusting the way that most of the topics around.
Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm going to do the same thing with Brent Turvey here that I did with Cy Ray. I'm going to pull his words and we're going to make a list of his strong words that he says, because that's what we do over here. Okay, so far we've got relieved and disgusting. Okay, all right, I'm gonna get up and get a piece of paper so I can do that and let this play.
On this case have been talked about and shared and even ruminated and theorized over. And I'm grateful to be in this space with you because I know you're not like that. You're more of a facts and law, and that's that's how I prefer to meet this case, because it's
Sure.
it's more productive that way. So really great relief.
For sure.
Primarily because so many things happen in that plea that people have only speculated about and continue to speculate about. And the first one is that that no one seems to be saying out loud, which is that Ann Taylor and her legal team were fired. They were just fired across the board. There's no getting away from that, what happened there.
When you say fired, you mean that when he filed his petition, he did it on his own. So therefore, he obviously didn't ask them to do it. And then he asked for other counsel to be appointed to him. So is that what you're referring to when you say fired?
I don't know how we can see it any other way. That's
He wants to use the most aggressive words that he could use. They were fired. You're fired. Wow. All right. So he was greatly relieved. He basically said the case was disgusting. What had happened in that case was disgusting. I can't spell and talk at the same time. It is just like being at school. And then what did you just say? Fired. Fired. You're fired. Oh my God.
the other problem we have with this.
No, I
case
agree.
is
That's just what I'm. No,
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking. I agree with that. I just want to be clear so people understand. Yeah.
Exactly. For those of us who work these kinds of cases, I mean, I do investigative cases for law enforcement. I do cases for prosecutors, and I also do cases for defense attorneys and civil attorneys. And then I also do post-conviction cases, quite a few of them, to review things done after the conviction has already occurred. And I think it's just interesting how people are tripping over themselves to try to describe this in another way, to try to give some leeway to what's happening or create some sort of intrigue or mystery about it. Kohberger laid it out pretty clearly what the issues were. And that's so my sense is relief that he is actually able to speak for himself, as opposed to being suppressed by Ann Taylor. Ann Taylor no longer holds the privilege.
Oh my gosh. He just said Bryan was suppressed. Bryan was suppressed by Ann Taylor. Good night, John. Good night, good night. Bryan was suppressed by Ann Taylor. That's crazy. He's going to go into that. He's going to expound on that. How did she suppress a Bryan Kohberger?
Privilege is his, and he gets to decide what he wants to say. And that has not been true since the plea. And that's the other thing. It goes, if you want, we can go right into what the plea is and what he claims if you want. But so my first reaction was relief. And now it seems like the real work might actually get done. Those are my sentiments.
Well, and before I definitely want to get into the plea, but before we do that, let me ask you this. So, for the regular person who has no exposure to the criminal justice system, who hasn't sat in courtrooms the way you have or I have, we watch Bryan Kohberger sit in a court, right? And we watch the judge ask Bryan Kohberger a series of questions that he responded to. And we also saw that Bryan Kohberger filled out a piece of paper that basically, said, I am pleading guilty of my own free will. And, I'm satisfied with my counsel. So talk to me a little bit about how now, he's going to say, I want to withdraw all of this. And let's kind of go through that in terms of the plea. And, because to me, Bryan Kohberger does not seem like a dumb guy, right? Like we're seeing his filings, we're seeing what he's written. And I'm kind of wondering how we reconcile this idea that he is an intelligent person. He was college educated. He was a teacher. He was a teacher's assistant. He was taking classes. And now, now we're hearing that he has written things to the court that are intelligent. So talk to me about how we reconcile this idea that he got up before a court, said all these things, and now he's saying, wait, this wasn't right. Like why?
Okay. As Brent Turvey gives this answer, because I have watched most of this. You're right, Witchy. It gets way worse. Hello, Turkey Creek gal. As he gives this answer, keep in mind We just got the released mental health evaluation about Bryan Kohberger a couple days ago. And he did, in fact, get diagnosed on the autism spectrum, level 1, very high functioning. Nothing, his intelligence is not impacted. It is his behaviors, his mannerisms, his characteristics, his pervasiveness. That is a huge word that people need to understand about this type of disability, being on the autism spectrum, pervasiveness, the intensity of the behaviors that set in with somebody, right? The repetitiveness, what we learned from that report about Bryan is very telling. I went over it yesterday. It's at the beginning of the Lindsay Clancy trial from yesterday. So just keep that in mind with what Brent Turvey says here.
Why did he wait until now to bring those things up rather than say, I'm not going to plead guilty in the first place?
I'll just say is this: anybody who's questioning this process has obviously never been a criminal defendant charged with murder, and certainly not charged with capital murder. So second guessing this is kind of, it's one of those things that I find really unpalatable, because I've done this. I've worked.
That's excellent, G Bean. Everybody's weird. Everybody's different. Yes. In our house, we say everybody's got a little crazy. Not just talking about our house, like the world, like in the world, right? Yeah. Everybody's different. Everybody's different for sure.
Probably 25, 30 death penalty cases in my career and testified to many of them. And what attorneys tell clients to do is shut up, don't make a face, don't respond, don't react, and above all, don't talk. Look straight ahead or take notes. That's the...
Okay. Think about Bryan. He's a very rigid thinker, according to like what we read in that report. Like, I could see him taking a direction like that and just following it to the T, right? Think back to the traffic stops we saw him get pulled over on. He was like, he's very matter of fact. I'm not going to lie to you. I told the truth. What was the law? How did I break the law? I want to understand the rules. That's his mannerisms. That's his characteristics. That's how he behaves. So if he's in a terrifying situation, right, taking it very literally, yes, it said that in that report, like a very literal, and his family reported that when they had his family fill out like the questionnaires. They made sure to note that he's a very literal thinker. So when you see him facing the families who are giving their victim impact statements and he's like a rock statue, he's following directions. That's what he was told to do. And apparently Turvey is saying he was told to do that the whole time, in every hearing, in every, Turvey's spilling the beans over here. He's spilling coffee. He's spilling beans.
Instruction given to every client, every defense client ever. All right. Whether or not they take that advice is something else. So from the perspective of Ann Taylor, from her legal team, he's a good client doing what he's told, trying to maintain that stoicism, which cannot be judged. Because as you can see from this case, as I said at the outset of this interview, the response of the public has really been our worst selves. We've been our worst selves in responding to this, smacking our chops over the deaths of these young girls, making light, making jokes, making fake AI videos to purport the side or the other. It's been very grotesque. It's been a menagerie of the grotesque, in my opinion. He has been a good client. He has been doing what he's told. He has not been talking, as he's been told. He's been letting Ann Taylor and her legal team talk for him. And as you and I both know, up until the weekend before the plea, It was all, I'm innocent. I want to take this to trial. I want to take this to court. Now, the question is, why would he then get up there? Well, first of all, he didn't allocute. That's the first thing. The second thing, and it's clear from his filing, is he was told two things. One, you need to confess or to get a plea to take the death penalty off the table. That's what he was told by his attorneys. Bad.
Okay, let's stop here for a second because I saw your response, G Bean, and I have to say, excuse me, Carlos and I we touched on this conversation in one of our past episodes that we did together, talking about the Idaho 4, and we talked about the humanity that, I mean, I don't know how you can kind of argue a little bit against that. Like, I agree with Brent Turvey about this, and he's saying like the public's response to this. He said grotesque. I don't know if I would. It's not everybody, but I do see that side of it. I mean, like people creating fake accounts and pretending to be other people, and like the backstabbing that's gone on. I mean, there has been some of that. Okay, things that, you know, there's a lot out there. Okay, so there, but not everybody. Not everybody. There's a lot of creators that try really hard to stick to the facts, like he said. And sometimes I get rubbed the wrong way when these experts come out and they talk about the online social media community all together and just paint us as like, you know, stupid stupid people that live in our parents' basement that don't have lives. Is that a good description? We are not all like that, all right? Seeing if any of you had any comments about that. Oh, that's a good reflection, KT06. And we're so happy to have you here. You feel bad for the way that you judged. Oh, yeah. You don't know what you don't know. I will say that I have to give a lot of creators out here credit. We did a good job picking up on Bryan. Many of us, myself included, had that gut feeling this whole time that we were seeing those autism spectrum traits, right? We knew it. A lot of us have experience with that, you know, and you just know, you can tell. And so that has been verified, okay? Okay, so he's going to continue on about Ann Taylor and what she did with Bryan Kohberger.
Advice across the board, but that was the advice he was given. Then the second thing that he was told, according to his filing, was that it's okay to lie about whether or not you did it, because that will set legal things in motion, and then we will start to do appeals and we'll start to do other things around that. But this will give us time. This is a time-saving device. That's what's heavily implied in his filing. So why would he do it? One, because he was told to, and then two, he was told it would not be of legal significance. Now, whether or not you and I would have believed that, if I had been in the room in that conversation, I would have said, what the f are you talking about? You don't tell people it's a born virgin.
Turvey dropping the F-bomb at 7 minutes and 51 seconds. I love this guy. I love this guy. He is standing 10 toes down on whether you agree with what he's saying or not, he believes in what he's saying. That's for sure. Oh my God. And again, and I think this right here is the headbutting that we saw between Ann Taylor and Brent Turvey. The first time he came out to talk, as soon as she found out that he like contributed to the book and was out doing interviews and everything, and she came out with that letter like scolding him, this is what it's about, because he knew what happened and he was calling her out. And he said that wouldn't have happened if he was in the room.
Knock that off right now. That's what I would have done.
Right.
but I wasn't in the room.
Let's hear that one more
That's
time.
whether or not you and I would believe that. If I had been in the room in that conversation, I would have said, "What the f are you talking about? You don't tell people it's suborn perjury. Knock that off right now." That's what I would have done. But I wasn't in the room. I have no, I happen to know now who was in the room, and I know exactly what was said.
Oh, who was in the room, Dr. Turvey? Who was in the room? Well, we know Ann Taylor. We know Bryan Kohberger. I think he's talking about the parents, which he's going to talk more about, the parents being in the room. But who else? Who else might have been in the room? Hello, Rui. Hello, hello. Becca. Eliza. I mean, those would be the only other two, probably, right? Yeah.
And it comports with the meeting that Ann Taylor had with us, which caused me to get up and walk out, which is that she basically said, I couldn't get him to take the plea initially. I couldn't get him to do it. So what did I do? I went and I enlisted his family. I told him he had to do it.
So Ann Taylor wanted to get him to take the plea? Are you hearing what he's saying? Ann Taylor wanted to get him to take the plea. I thought a defense attorney is supposed to present the offer and weigh pros and cons. But he said, G-Bean, he doesn't care if he's allowed or not. Brent Turvey is asking no one's permission. He needs no one's permission. He is scorching the earth out here. So, exactly, Becca. A defense attorney is supposed to say, hey, Bryan, the prosecution has come to us and said, you know, we'll take the death penalty off the table if you'll admit that you killed all 4 victims. We're not even going to make you allocute. Here, you know, here's the good things about that, and here's, you know, the bad things about that, and make a decision, right? And I can tell you, you know, if you have questions, I'll answer your questions about both things. You're not supposed to go in there trying to get your client to take a plea deal. And again, this is according to Dr. Turvey. We need to hear all sides, but you know what? Dr. Turvey speaking to the public. Ann Taylor has never come out and spoke to the public. And I was thinking about that today when I was watching Kevin Reddington, a defense attorney for Lindsay Clancy. He goes up to the podium. He talks about everything. He talked about stuff before the trial started. Why did everything have to be so silent, hidden, covered, secret? So I love a man, a woman, a person who will come out and just speak, especially if you're calling something out,
Gave him a horror show of what death row was going to be like. And I told him what it was going to be like if he was, you know, just in there as a regular inmate, not on death row. And it took more than a day and a half, maybe 2 days, to get the family to convince him to take the plea. So why did he do it? I mean, in my head, I've seen this kind of scenario play out before, but only with extremely unethical attorneys who don't want to go to trial for whatever reason.
I'm wondering.
Oh my God, we need to hear that again. I didn't hear this. This is why, if you know, I know everybody's listening to this, different creators, different channels. We can watch all of them because we're all going to catch different things. I didn't even hear this the first time I listened to it. Okay. Listen to this part right here.
Extremely unethical attorneys.
Oh, back up a little bit more.
It took more than a day and a half, maybe 2 days, to get the family to convince him to take the plea. So why did he do it? I mean, in my head, I've seen this kind of scenario play out before, but only with extremely unethical attorneys who don't want to go to trial.
I'm sorry, you guys. I'm not laughing at what he's saying. I'm laughing at how he is saying it because it's so bold. It is so in your face. Scorched earth. That's all I got that from Carlos. That's Carlos's, and it's the perfect description of him. Oh my gosh. Unethical attorneys. Only unethical attorneys. Yeah, we're going to play it again. Unethical attorneys are the only ones who try to force your client to take a plea deal.
More than a day and a half, maybe 2 days, to get the family to convince him to take the plea. So why did he do it? I mean, in my head, I've seen this kind of scenario play out before, but only with extremely unethical attorneys who don't want to go to trial for whatever reason.
I'm wondering why.
Unethical attorneys don't want to go to trial, right? Unethical things could have happened in the course of this investigation, through the course of the pre-trial hearings and everything. And if that happened, you don't want to go to trial because you don't want things out there on the record, called out, discovered, right? Sally Port, thank you. He did nail that description. Yes. Please take a moment to hit that thumbs up button if you don't mind, you guys. Thank you.
You wouldn't want to go to trial. Like, this was not a financial situation, right? The Kohbergers were not paying for his legal defense. The taxpayers of the state of Idaho were paying, so their bills were being paid. They work for a public defender's office, which obviously they are paid. So, and this is not a case where, I don't know, I think the majority of the public were expecting anybody to win. So I guess my question is, what do you really have to lose? And yeah, okay, the death penalty is one area of conversation, right? We can talk about the death penalty, but I know, and hopefully Bryan Kohberger understood that just because the state asks for the death penalty doesn't mean if you lose at trial, they're going to impose it on you, right? That is something that...
Well, except in this case, right? Don't you think they were going to 100% give him the death penalty if he would have been convicted? But they said something very important. So let's not skirt over this. Let's not miss this fact. Bryan Kohberger said no to the plea deal. Okay? Let's say that a few more times. Bryan Kohberger said no to the plea deal. He told Ann Taylor no. He might have said hell no. Right? Ann Taylor was like, oh my gosh, I've been talking to this guy for like a day and a half. I can't get him to take the plea deal. That's huge. And so what does she do? Let's call mother and father. Mother, father, bring the sisters and come. We're going to fly you in because we got to talk to Bryan about this. And then that's when they started talking about the death row, and we toured death row, and this is what it's like. And I'm sure Mrs. Kohberger was terrified by that. Witchy was more likes, or I will start brewing lucid spells. That's great. That's a great one. Thank you, Witchy. Thank you. Bacon, eggs, and hash. Hello, hello. Bryan was no fool. He knew what he was doing, I'm sure, but that gamble probably will backfire. Well, I'm not sure the gamble of what. He was, from what Turvey is saying, when Bryan says in his post-conviction relief that he was coerced, I mean, how many times should a defense attorney ask their client, do you want to take the plea deal? Once, 5 times, 10 times? I mean, if your client says no, are you supposed to like, oh, let me wait, like maybe he doesn't really mean no. Hey, Bryan, are you sure? Like he gave you an answer, is what it sounds like to me. He gave an answer, but she kept asking and talking and bringing in the parents and talking about death row and, you know, scared them. This is the better option. I am pretty sure, hello, Mad Dog 5000, pretty sure that that's against like what would be the legal laws and rules and procedures and the way you're supposed to, like ethics, at least the ethical code, right? Yes, and you know what else is ironic is that we heard that rumor. There is a huge leak in this case, huge, and I'm not talking Dateline. I'm talking to us. There is somebody. We heard about Bryan, like about his mom being the one to tell him to take the plea deal a long time ago, like right after it happened, almost. Yep.
Jury decides after the fact, and you know, you can present mitigating evidence and things of that nature, and your mother can get up and talk about how awful it would be to know that her son is being put to death. And so there are ways to fight against the death penalty. So that was not a foregone conclusion if he were to go to trial and lose. So I guess I'm wondering, like, what do you think? You know, I've always said as a lawyer, I will try anything, right? I am not in the business of trying to convince clients to take pleas. I, of course, have conversations with clients when offers are made to them, because that is our ethical obligation to do so. We must convey any offers made to clients. But in 26 years of doing this, I have never twisted anybody's arm. And I say to them, you live with the consequence of your decision. You want me to go in there and fight for you? I'll fight for you. So what do you think, what do you think they had to lose here by going to trial? I mean, they fought pretty hard throughout the pendency of the case. They obviously hired experts to try to put them in a position that was better at trial. So I'm just wondering, like, what do you think it was ultimately that she just didn't want to fight? Because frankly,
this is a great question. She's asking, you know, why? What are they hiding? I feel, or why? She didn't say why are they hiding. That's my insert. Sorry. She's asking Dr. Turvey, you know, why would they do this? Why would they kind of persuade heavily Bryan to take the plea deal? Why would the defense avoid going to trial? I think Dr. Turvey already answered that. He already answered that. He said that it is, he said unethical attorneys that don't want to go to trial are the ones that would push for a plea deal, those are his words. Those were his words. So let's see how he answers it this time.
Fight that was going on, as long as it was a fight. The trial aspect of it isn't really that difficult once you're prepared. So I'm just wondering what you think happened here.
I have some speculations, but first let me just say, Donna, I wish you had been there. I wish you had been in the room. I wish you had given that advice. That was not, he was not getting that advice. That's the first thing. So one, he had no advocates for him in that room. He had only people that wanted him to plea out because they.
Well, and think about that. Like his parents, like they don't know the legal system. They don't know what's right or wrong for Bryan. I don't know how strong-willed of a person they were. Like, I'm a hardhead. Like, that's what my grandma used to call me all the time. Like, I believe nobody. So, like, if I was the parent in that room, it would have been a different story. But not everybody's like me. You know, Carlos isn't like that. He's like laid back, listens to everything. And there were a couple good points here in the chat. I wanted to say hello to everybody. Hi, Paco Jewel. Prosecutors hid all the evidence as long as they could to make this happen. Yeah, absolutely. If they would have got the stuff one time like they were supposed to, we would have had a trial. What they did was intentional, I'm sure is what you mean. Absolutely. Pineapple Diana, hello, welcome in, welcome in. Dirty, dirty politics. Yep. Yeah, I think, I don't know the date that Bryan got diagnosed on the autism spectrum, but after that date, he should have had an advocate with him. I believe, according to the federal law for Individuals with Disabilities Act, federal law, that's a right. That is a right that they have to provide to people. So at least you could have had somebody. I don't know.
They didn't want to go to trial. 2, he didn't have all the information about all the exculpatory evidence that we had found. He didn't know that. He didn't know what the defense team had uncovered. And it's not me by myself. None of this stuff, according to his filing.
See, this part's different right here. Listen to this. Okay. He didn't know what the defense team had. That's different than the prosecution hiding it. Like if the prosecution's hiding it, like we knew, like they're not turning over evidence, you get mad at the prosecution. But when your own attorney isn't sharing information with you, that's huge.
It's for him in that room. He had only people that wanted him to plea out because they didn't want to go to trial. 2, he didn't have all the information about all the exculpatory evidence that we had found. He didn't know that. He didn't know what the defense team had uncovered. And it's not me by myself. None of this stuff, according to his filing and according to other things that I'm aware of, he wasn't provided any of the defense reports. He didn't even know I existed until I went on a podcast. So that's its own little separate little problem.
And we know that because he told.
Oh, listen to that tell, you guys. Bryan Kohberger didn't even know that Brent Turvey existed until Bryan heard him on a podcast, a YouTube podcast. Is Bryan watching YouTube podcasts? He's getting lots of information if he is. He's getting lots of information if he is. He's probably got notebooks and notebooks and notebooks full of information if he is. Pineapple Diana says, literally, in your opinion, how he was handled with not only his case, but his mentality. No offense to him. Yes, it's criminal. Yep. It's not okay. It's not okay. I agree with you. Yep. Yeah. We have no empathy for mental health in this country, in my opinion. There's very few people. I will say that. There are very few people. Bryan didn't know Turvey existed until 2026 when Bryan started watching YouTube videos.
None of this stuff, according to his filing and according to other things that I'm aware of, he wasn't provided any of the defense reports. He didn't even know I existed until I went on a podcast. So that's its own little separate little problem.
And we know that because he told somebody that, or how do we know that? Because if that's the case, that's horrific.
Something that I have not disclosed yet, which I think is important to know. And that is that after I did Queens of Custody and your podcast, the family reached out to me like, who the hell are you? And what are you doing on this case? And why haven't we heard of all this stuff before?
Interesting. So Brent Turvey He's not holding back. Do you think Chris Whitcomb would have answered that question? Do you think Cy Ray would have answered that question? No. Hard no. Hard no. Brent Turvey, scorched earth, I'll tell ya. Let me tell you. His nickname is Brent, let me tell you something, Turvey. I love this guy. GB. Bryan Kohberger didn't know anything until he saw Brent Turvey on a podcast. And then Brent Turvey's like, it was the custody queens, and it was your show. I'm not laughing at any of this information. I'm always like a laugher on here. I like to, have a good time with you guys when we're pointing out ridiculous stuff. I think it is just crazy what he's telling us right now, right? Just crazy what he's telling us right now. He just said it. It was a great question by her. Wade Bird. Let me tell you, I gave him the nickname Brent, let me tell you something, Turvey. And then his emblem, like on his clothing, is going to be scorched earth with like a flame. That's his logo. I've got his nickname and his logo. All right, let's listen to this some more.
And then I immediately like, okay, well, let's talk. And then I handed him off to people who had legal minds, which I do not. So I was like, sure. I feel your pain. I understand what you're saying. The next step has to be legal steps that I can't be involved in. So you need to go do that. There are things that have to happen that I can't be a part of. And that's what happened. So I got told by the family.
I zoned out for a second.
And why haven't we heard of all this stuff before? And then I immediately like, okay, well, let's talk. And then I handed him off to people.
Okay, wait a second.
So that's its own little step.
I apologize.
And we know.
I apologize, you guys. So we left off where Bryan's parents called Turvey. Turvey said his parents got a hold of me. Who are you? Why are you involved in this case? Like, what? We heard that you were talking about this case on these podcasts. And so that's what I want to hear his response to. He didn't even know I existed. Okay, we'll start right here.
Until I went on a podcast. So that's its own little separate problem.
And we know that because he told somebody that, or how do we know that? Because if that's the case, that's
something that I have not disclosed yet, which I think is important to know. And that is that after I did Queens of Custody and your podcast, the family reached out to me and like, who the hell are you? And what are you doing on this case? And why haven't we heard of all this stuff before? And then I immediately like, okay, well, let's talk. And then I handed him off to people who had legal minds, which I do not. So I was like, sure. I feel your pain. I understand.
He just dropped a bomb right there. Do you think? Listen to this. He said, I talked to his parents. Okay, let me talk to you. Let me explain like who I am. And then I handed them off to people who have more legal experience. Who has Brent Turvey worked with? Brent Turvey worked on the West Memphis 3 case. Brent Turvey has worked with the Innocence Project with the West Memphis 3. Do you think Brent Turvey reached out to some friends in the industry and and helped make some connections there? Yeah, you guys. So that doesn't mean anybody's officially hired, but something could be, someone could be advocating, guiding. Maybe they are putting something together. He's on a mission. This dude's on a mission, and he has a lot of connections. Hey, Labs. Hi, Glenn. Witchy. Ooh, okay. Interesting.
I understand what you're saying. The next step has to be legal steps that I can't be involved in. So you need to go do that. There are things that have to happen that I can't be a part of. And that's what happened. So I got told by the family directly that they had not received that stuff.
You guys, were any of you here watching me when I did a preview before the Netflix documentary series, or the Netflix documentary came out? And it was the day before, and I was all hyped because the producer of the Netflix documentary had worked on the West Memphis 3. The producer of the Netflix documentary worked with Brent Turvey. They know each other. And so I was so hopeful that that Netflix series was going to show like all the issues that Brent Turvey had seen. That didn't work out, but I had made that connection way back then. I'll have to go back and watch that again because I think I kind of predicted this. I think I said Brent Turvey, I think I was like questioning, do you think Brent Turvey went to go talk to Bryan Kohberger? That was like, I was thinking that back then. So maybe Brent Turvey didn't go exactly speak to Bryan Kohberger, but he definitely spoke to his parents. He definitely spoke to his parents.
That's
the next thing
that's troubling. That's troubling.
Very troubling. It gets worse. It's way worse than you can possibly imagine. Way worse than I even worried about. I always game out the worst case scenarios and then I sort of prepare for them, hope for the best, plan for the worst kind of deal. And
that's the way I am. How many of you are like that? Expect the worst, plan for the worst, hope for the best, kind of a thing. If I was her, I would have been like, what's worse? What's worse? Tell me now, what's worse?
It's way worse. The family has not spoken yet because they're frightened out of their minds about what's going to happen the next time they speak. The vultures will descend, the legal consequences. They've been told to be quiet for this whole time, and they've also done the same thing. Notice Bryan Kohberger did not allocute because he couldn't, because he didn't know what happened. His family has not spoken out other than the sister giving one interview. And even that, after that, she's now a little gun shy, but they're trying to talk, but they really don't have the facility to do that. They don't trust anybody and they shouldn't.
When I'm not trying to be an English teacher here or anything, but when he says that they don't have the facility to do that, he means like, no, he doesn't mean like a place. He means like, are they the type of people that are outspoken and, able to like, because that's hard. That's hard to do in a kind and friendly environment. It's really hard for the wrath that they would probably get if his parents tried to speak out. So he's saying that the parents don't have the facility to be able to do that. Like, it's just, not their character. They're not a scorched earther like Brent Turvey. And that's another thing that we speculated about. How many of us said or thought that the parents probably aren't talking because they're scared, they were threatened? Turvey is saying they don't know who to trust. They don't know who to trust. That's horrible. That's terrifying. And let's just throw in the victims' parents in that, because after hearing all of this stuff, they shouldn't feel like they can trust people, in my opinion. This case looks like a hot mess all the way around. Why are you guys mentioning Wentworth? I loved that show. I binged Wentworth. If you have not watched Wentworth, you have to watch it. Is it on Netflix? It is a women's prison show, but it's different than Orange is the New Black. The storylines in Wentworth were just loved it. The characters were awesome. Highly recommend. Highly recommend. It's so good.
Kohberger himself in his filing makes this very real and says, I didn't know any of this stuff. I wasn't being told anything. I wasn't being given good advice. And I was told the opposite of some of the things that are occurring right now. And he is, as any good client does, has held his water this entire time, because the person who speaks for him is Ann Taylor. And in lockup, he had no ability. Well, in lockup, he was even more limited by what he could say and who he could say it to. Now, I will give you one.
Wait a minute. What is he saying?
This stuff. I wasn't being told anything. I wasn't being given good advice. And I was told the opposite of some of the things that are occurring right now. And he is, as any good client does, has held his water this entire time, because the person who speaks for him is Ann Taylor. And in lockup, he had no ability. Well, in lockup, he was even more limited by what he could say and who he could say it to. Now, I'll give you one other piece of information that I learned from the Kohberger family. She hasn't spoken to him since the plea. So she's in court representing him without even talking to him.
Whoa, what? So Bryan took the plea deal on July 2nd, 2025. And Ann Taylor hasn't talked to him since. Bryan Kohberger accepted the plea deal on July 2nd, 2025, and Ann Taylor didn't talk to him since. But then Brent Turvey said she represented him in court after that. Oh, because there was, like, remember, there were some hearings after that, like definitely the families speaking to him, and then there was the financial part of it. So they did have some hearings. Great restitution. I just say money, Witchy. I just say money. Thank you. I draw blanks sometimes with vocabulary words.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
So
that
let me.
scenario? So the questions
I
you're
can't.
asking are really for Ann Kohberger. Why didn't you share this exculpatory material? And why aren't you talking to your client?
Yeah, I mean, that just makes no sense to me. And when I look at this, and I want to be really clear, so people that are listening or watching
in my little
understand.
brain, it makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But we can speculate
Well,
as to why.
Sure. Well, and when I look at this, and I want people who are listening or watching to understand, there is a very big difference between the atrocities and the horrific things that happened to these 4 young college students and the court process. And so, everybody out there is talking about how awful this is for the families to have to relive this, and this is coming back. And it is. It's awful. It's awful that it ever happened in the first place. But I think every person of every family member would want to make sure that whoever was put behind bars for this is actually the person who did it. And so,
Did you hear what she just said? She's sure that every family member of every victim would want to make sure that the person that they actually put behind bars is the actual perpetrator of the crime. She's allowed to say that on her show. We've been saying that. That's all we've been saying. Like, I don't ever want to say anything negative about the families or the parents or anything. Like, I feel horrible for them. But everybody I can't, nobody should want the wrong person to be in jail. I'm glad she said it. I'm glad she said it.
So,
Well,
I've
I will
always
say
thought,
that's generally true, but I won't just speak out on this very issue because it's one of the things that disgusts me the most. I've never seen a family try to sell their daughter's story like this before.
Do you see my face? Did you guys hear that? Oh my gosh. Now, see, I don't like that. I'm shocked that he said that. I don't like that. But scorched earth, scorched earth. Brent, let me tell you something, Turvey. That was beyond scorched earth. That was yikes. Yikes.
Ever going to Crime Con, trying to get different documentary deals. I'm disgusted by that. I wouldn't even think to do that as an expert, and I have access to everything.
I missed this part earlier. Clearly, I didn't hear this part earlier. This was a genuine first reaction over here. Over here. Holy Toledo, you guys. He gives no F's. And just like that, we like Dr. Turvey again. Demad Greek, hello, hello. I thought I saw Nomadic Duckman in here. Hello, Tyridon. Oh my gosh, you guys. I'm like, that caught me off guard. That caught me off guard. Wow.
I'll talk to you and we'll have a professional conversation, but not for money.
Sure.
And certainly I wouldn't, anybody who's out there trying to sell a story for money, that's grotesque.
and and I'm not going to judge what people do when they're put in the most horrific situations. I mean, obviously we can have personal opinions on it, but in terms of, just being, and again, you have to remember that these are people that are talking to one side, right? They're talking to the prosecutors. They're looking at what the prosecutors are showing them. They're believing, what they hear. But prosecutors sit down with family members prior to pleas and talking about strength of evidence. And, they do that in terms of, actual facts or physical exhibits or things like that. That might be a little bit different. But I do think that from a practical standpoint, even people who it's very difficult to relive this, I would think that even at some point your logical brain would take over and you would say, okay, if this really isn't the guy, then we want to make sure that we find the guy. But now let me ask you this question, because here's the practical side of this. This is a very difficult thing to overcome for Bryan Kohberger, right? Taking back a plea, putting yourself in a position to actually have a trial and to be able to plead not guilty. This is a legal burden that is very high. And so I'm wondering where you think this goes next for him. Do you think legally he has enough to go into the court and say, you know what, my lawyer was ineffective and didn't do a good job. And I'm, the legal standard's high. And I'm just wondering because, the courts give a lot of deference to lawyers saying that was strategic. They made a decision. They decided not to do this. Now, it's a little different when you're talking about a plea versus a trial that went bad.
You're absolutely correct. It's a very high and very difficult legal burden for anyone to overcome. And this is not a regular case. It's a case with exceptional circumstances. The first issue is he didn't allocute. That's the first thing that always sticks out to me. It really bothered me that he didn't allocute, and that caused a lot of problems.
Same.
Because that's supposed to happen. Well, let's take a step back and ask ourselves what we don't know. Who was the NBC Dateline leak? Wasn't me.
Correct.
It wasn't. The Ada County Sheriff's Department's investigating Ann Taylor's office. That would have been, and the special master who would do the investigation knew before the plea who it was, and they put that on file and they sealed it. Bryan Kohberger doesn't know who that leak was.
This is also insane. This is insane. He just said they know who the leaker is. And they sealed it and they filed it away. You might not be wrong, Witchy. let's listen to this again. He said, who was the leaker for the investigation? And you know what? Like I said, whoever that leaker is, it's not just Dateline. Dateline just blew it up, right? That Dateline like blew up the leaking, right? You got a hold of unsealed documents, photos, information, and put it on a television show. Okay. Talk about not staying under the radar. Like you're screaming to get caught. Okay. That's what brought the attention to the leaker. But someone has been leaking information this whole entire time. There are so many facts that have come out in this case that I'm like, that was a rumor 3 years ago. We heard about that 2 years ago. Someone has been putting information out there. And the biggest bomb right here is Brent Turvey just said they know who it is. They put the name in an envelope and they sealed it and hid it away. So how do we get that unsealed? So he said it's the sheriff's department. You know, we heard about that. You know, right around after Dateline came out when they started talking about a leak. Well, they're investigating Ann Taylor's office. And we were all, at first, I think the majority of the people are like, okay, yeah, right. Like it's coming from the defense, right? That's what I thought. But now you look at this, like what is really going on or has gone on?
Leak. Wasn't me.
Correct.
It wasn't. The Ada County Sheriff's Department's investigating Ann Taylor's office. That would have been, and the special master who would do the investigation knew before the plea who it was, and they put that on file and they sealed it. Bryan Kohberger doesn't know who that leak was. It didn't help him. It hurt him badly. So he should know. If Ann Taylor knows, and she definitely knows, she would have to know because she's part of that sealed material. She would have to have reviewed it.
So Ann Taylor knows who the leak is. Bill Thompson knows who the leak is. They all have to like go into the courtroom and see all this secret stuff and come to agreements and agree to seal it, right? And DMAD Greek, you won't know who the leaker is because it kills the case. Oof. I don't know how they... I understand what you're saying. I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. I agree with you. But that's not a secret. The fact that there is a leaker is not a secret. The whole world knows. We're waiting to find out who's the leaker. Who's the leaker? How long do they think they're going to keep that sealed? Where's the mainstream media like begging? Do we need to go, like, I always talk about going to do a sit-in or something. Like we all need to go do a sit-in at the Latah County Sheriff's Office apparently and say, release the leaker's name. Something. They cannot be legal to keep that hidden. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
She certainly didn't pass that along to Kohberger. So that's a problem. That's the first little hurdle there that's going to contextualize why he wasn't looped in and why he was coerced into taking this deal and why he was told to lie, why he was told to perjure himself. And again, this is something that people do all the time under the stress and duress of a defense attorney telling him, I'm not taking this to trial. For what is it, like a third, 30% of all of the people who are exonerated by the Innocence Project basically confessed and took a plea deal at the urgence of their defense attorney because they were frightened they were going to lose a trial. That's a third. That's not a joke. That's something we have to think about how our legal system works.
I told you he knew about the Innocence Project. He's talking about the Innocence Project. I don't know. Maybe there's something. I'm just speculating. No truth in what I'm saying, but he said it. He said it. And think about that. So out of 100 people that take a plea deal, 30 of them are how do I want to say this? He said 30% are innocent, right? How did he say that? I had this all lined up the way I wanted to say it earlier. Oh, exonerated. Here we go.
30% of all of the people who are exonerated by the Innocence Project basically confessed and took a plea deal at the urgence of their defense attorney.
Okay, so why am I struggling with this? Oh, the Innocence Project helps 30% of the people get exonerated. So they get them off. They're innocent. They're completely innocent. They took a plea deal even though they were innocent. They were actually factually innocent. I say this all the time. It's 30% of the cases were innocent and took a plea deal. The other 60% of the cases, this is the point I wanted to make, they could have been innocent but found guilty by a jury, things like that. But he knows about the Innocence Project.
Because they were frightened they were going to lose a trial. That's a third. That's not a joke. That's something we have to think about how our legal system works. The next thing is that if this, I really appreciate that Judge Hippler appeared on paper, at least, to be taking this seriously by accepting the filing and then appointing him a new attorney. I don't know. It concerns me that it's a small town attorney that's got a 1-star rate. It concerns me a bit who the attorney is, but maybe he's better than we know. And maybe he's got death experience that we don't know about. So that's the next part. It's not just about the legal hurdles. It's about the competence and quality of your representation, right? But the other thing is that it's a pro form. It's the next step that has to happen in the process. You've done this before, I'm certain. And I don't know whether you ever worked with Innocence Networks before, but I have through my entire career. In fact, I started working with the Innocence Project. My first big case, high profile case, was the West Memphis case. And I worked directly with the Innocence Project out of Cardozo Law in that case. And the process and the metrics and the intake ability of a Innocence Project is dependent upon all the other appeals being denied or completed, those processes completed. So in terms of it being a stepping stone towards other legal avenues, you have to knock them down one at a time, right? One thing at a time. You can't just skip to the end, right? So,
all right, so that just answered my question. So he made it clear right there. You can't use the Innocence Project isn't going to pick up a case unless they have exhausted every single appeal available to them. And Glenn, I looked into the Innocence Project a lot. I covered, I have a lot of older live shows where I covered cases where innocent people pled guilty or took a plea deal and were later found innocent. And so, yeah, you're right. They prefer wrongful convictions instead of, I said I did it. Not that they won't ever do that, but yeah.
I see it as a big legal hurdle. I fear that Ann Taylor is going to be in a lot more trouble than she thinks because the communications that she had with everyone are documented.
He is just, I wish I had like a fire scorching the earth there, Turvey. Oh my gosh, he just said Ann Taylor is probably going to be in more trouble than she thinks she is because there is communication, written communication, and he's going to talk about emails. Yep. They're documented. Things are documented from the defense office. Okay. Now, everything that we're saying here is, based on this interview that we are watching. I am reacting to the statements made on this show. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Just making observations.
All documented. So all that stuff is going to come out. She no longer holds the privilege. Kohberger does. And if he gets his day in court, a hearing, which I worry that he won't, then all that stuff could come in. All those communications with family.
Okay, hold on one second because I got distracted by a question. Bacon, eggs, and hash. So our lovely legal system likes to make claims that really aren't factually true. Okay, so when Hitler said, you're waiving your right to appeal, I don't even know why they allow that anymore, because it's so misleading. And here's why. So maybe in Judge Hitler's court, he's saying you can't appeal. Maybe in the state of Idaho, he's saying you can't appeal. But it is your constitutional right as a citizen of the United States to be able to do that. And no state and no city can overrule a constitutional right. So that's where it gets like muddied waters. So I don't even know why they let them say that, because yes, he can. And he just did. He did just put in for an appeal. Okay. So he is saying that Ann Taylor has communications that are documented.
They're all documented. So all that stuff is going to come out. She no longer holds the privilege. Kohberger does. And if he gets his day in court, a hearing, which I worry that he won't, then all that stuff could come in. All those communications with family members and Kohberger himself, which he would want to have come out about the nature and extent of the coercion to him and his family by the attorney team. Right?
The extent? He just said the extent of the coercion of those communications with Bryan and his family members.
Which he would want to have come out about the nature and extent of the coercion to him and his family by the attorney team. Right? We're not living
by the attorney team.
Living in the old days where it's somebody's word. We don't take people at their word anymore because we can't. We have digital evidence we can use, text messages, video calls, video chats. The very evidence that we collected, we should have all collected in this case and disclosed initially, which took years to disclose, is the very evidence that would be presented in this court, in this type of hearing. So I'm not as pessimistic as you are, but I am realistic, which is I know what the hurdles are. And as you said, Mr. Kohberger is not an idiot either. So for him to put this on the table tells me that he's ready to go. And I don't think that his legal team is prepared for what he's going to present.
Well, and I think to your point about if we just start back with the original Dateline leak, I mean, if that comes back, if that came from his own lawyers, I mean, right there, you put him in a position where he was never
or one of his
defended
experts
properly.
at the direction of the attorney, right? And not just the attorney team, but also you got 3 attorneys and their assistants, and then you've also got, kind of a rogue defense expert right now going out there saying contrary things, And so we don't know. All we know is police think it came from the defense. And I know who it wasn't.
If that's the case, I mean, that is just, crazy. Now, let's talk about the evidence that they do believe, right, that they had against Kohberger from this whole time. And I know we talked about it last time you were on. I know it's part of Christopher Whitcomb's Broken Plea book. But talk to me again about, they basically found Bryan Kohberger based on the DNA that they got from the IgG DNA testing on the knife sheath. And I know that part of the big contention here is that knife sheath, the chain of custody wasn't proper, where it was found versus where it was in photos, all of those things. So talk to us again about really, because that really was the only piece of evidence they had other than the description of a vehicle, right? They didn't really have anything else. So that's what led them to Bryan Kohberger. So talk to me again about that and then what the issues were with that chain of custody, because I think it's important for people to remember that while they're listening today.
All right. So two things. One is that we don't know. As I'm sitting here today, I cannot confirm to you by any forensic metric or by any judicial testimony or any unsworn testimony, anything like that. I cannot attest to you that I know for sure how Bryan Kohberger became a suspect. What I do know is at every opportunity, there was deflection, there was dissembling, and there was withholding by law enforcement about how that exactly happened. At one point, you have a probable cause statement saying it was from an informant. And then at one point, it's the IGG. And then you have the experts in DNA being fired on both sides. I mean, it's just like nobody was getting the answers that they wanted and people were getting terminated. It's one of the weirdest cases ever. This was an issue that should have been resolved with testimony under oath and documentation provided by the state. They have yet to provide that clearly, in my opinion. So I cannot tell you that.
Yeah.
And the fact that I can't tell you that should tell you that they're still, faffing about it to try to create. They're searching for a narrative still, I think.
And in terms of what you were able to review, do you know if you were given access to all of the evidence or were you given access to certain pieces of evidence? How do you know that what Ann Taylor allowed you to look at was actually everything she had?
I'm smiling because I really love this question from prosecutors or attorneys when I'm on the stand. So did you look at everything? And the answer to that, there's only one answer to that is, how can I possibly know the answer to that?
Well,
I couldn't know if I've seen everything.
But
I can tell you this. Ann Taylor gave experts like myself access to a OneDrive on Google Drive that was called Expert One or whatever. And anytime you wanted to access it, you had to log in, put in the password. That would send her an email and she would send you a text message with the verification code. Okay, so pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with any of that. What I do know is I thought I was given, I asked for certain things. I make a list of things that I asked for. It's a pro forma list I asked for in every case. And so I do that. And then we go to Idaho to do the evidence viewing, which I do in almost every case that I can. I do an evidence viewing to see what they got, to check chains of custody, to check, like I was just in a case in Washington. It was a double homicide. And I had an item, and no fault of anybody. This was just an innocent mistake. Somebody collected an item and it said stun gun on it, right? I open up the bag. It's a flashlight, not a stun gun. There's no stun gun in there. Okay. This was just a mistake. Okay. And I wouldn't, it will get mentioned, but it's not, there isn't a lot of other mistakes around that. Do you know what I mean? So it was an error.
Got it. Yeah, of course.
Somebody thought it was a stun gun and that's how they labeled it. And, they got a new system. They're working on this particular location. It's all, I'm not out for blood. I just want to know what happened. In this case, I went there.
Sure.
And there were two sets of evidence. One is the evidence that the law enforcement collected. And it was the mattress from Ethan and the knife sheath that was collected. Both of them have falsified change of custody. Both of them, it's not just a knife sheath, it's a couple other things. And many of the other items have correct change of custody on them with multiple people signing them. So we know that they know how to do it correctly. And it's not improper, it's illegal. It's a falsification of evidence. It's actually tampering with evidence. That would be the charge.
Wait a minute.
And also false swearing. You can't lie. It's a sworn document that you're bringing with evidence. It's signing things. And many of the other items have correct change of custody on them with multiple people signing them. So we know that they know how to do it correctly. And it's not improper, it's illegal. It's a falsification of evidence.
There he goes again. There he goes again. It's illegal. It's illegal. It's not a mistake. He started by giving an example of an innocent mistake. And he is clarifying to us, to her, I know the difference between an error and something intentional. That's why he gave that example. That's why he gave that example. I know that I've been doing this long enough. This is part of my protocol. When I am called as a defense expert, this is what I do. I ask, because he said before, how do I know I've seen everything? I don't know that I've seen everything because they hide stuff. It happens in every case. So part of his protocol is I'm going to go look for myself. Let me see what you got. And he knows the difference between a mistake and something intentional and illegal. And the reason why he's making that distinction is he said they have a ton of chain of custody items with a correct chain of custody until you get to the knife sheath. And then all of a sudden, the chain of custody goes to hell. They know the difference. And he knows what a mistake looks like. That's what I'm hearing him say. That's my interpretation. What do you guys think in the chat?
Actually, tampering with evidence, that would be the charge. And also false swearing. You can't lie. It's a sworn document that you're filling out. So it's not like
yeah, of course.
Oops, I slipped and fell and filled it out for everybody wrong. No. That's not what happened. How did I know whether or not I had received everything from Ann Taylor? I can tell you that I didn't. Because when I got to the bed frame that Ann Taylor's team had forced the police to collect before they destroyed the house, along with many other bloody items that the police did not want to check, did not want to collect, I found the hair on it. In this item. I'm like, what is going on here? This is looks like a palm print on the side, and then there's all this hair there. Whose is this? And I look at it, it's Ethan's, the bed frame. It's white with wooden slats. Anyway.
Okay. I think this is where there was some miscommunication. And I've started to pick up on this over the past month or so. When Whitcomb and Turvey first came out, it was, I don't know which one said it, but the way they described the hair was a handful of hair. And over time, and then we hear other people try to downplay it. They're like, well, it was just a hair, He's clearly saying here, he's not talking about a clump of hair in Ethan's hand. He's talking about the hair that we all saw, on the bed railing, right? And I don't know, there is a written report that says that they mislabeled hair as debris. I think that might be something else that was actually in Ethan's hair. And that's the one they said matched Ethan. So I think whatever was in Ethan's hair or in his hand was mislabeled as debris, was a hair. They said, oh, this looks like Ethan's. He's talking about that long hair stuck to the bed in blood with Ethan's palm print next to it, is what he's saying. They should have never destroyed that house. You got that right.
What's this? And they're like, oh, that's the hair. Don't worry about that. We'll talk to you about that later. So we go back and we talk about it later, and they disclosed to me new autopsy photos that they hadn't given to me before. And other photographs that they'd taken of that, defense photographs that they had taken of the house before it was demolished, that they had not given to me. So they were playing their cards very close to the vest in terms of sharing material, even with me, which I found to be, I let them know that was not okay. You got to share with me everything, because I anticipate being on stand.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm going to get this question from a very smart prosecutor named Donna, who's going to ask me, how do you know you've seen everything? And I'm going to have to throw you under the bus, and I'll do it.
That's right.
Yes,
right.
you will do
Sorry,
it.
I
We will throw you
don't know
under the
that
bus.
answer. They filed so many
man.
pretrial motions here. There was a lot of pretrial litigation in this case. And I don't remember any pretrial litigation dealing with chains of custody and whether or not certain items should be used, right? I think they did do it on the knife sheath, right? But I don't know if they did it on anything else.
They didn't know until a month. No, it was maybe a few weeks before the plea, because it got brought. One of the investigators brought a question to my attention, which led us down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Because I don't think like that. I don't think that people are lying. But I also think as a scientist, which is that if I see something wrong in one spot, I know I got to look in the other spots too. I can't just now accept it without question. So you're always supposed to be checking change of custody, and I'd love to take credit for finding everything, but I didn't. I'm the forensic scientist though. So if an investigator brings me a piece of evidence and asks me about it, then I give my opinion, then that becomes evidence. And then it causes us to look at other things, and the change of custody were all falsified on those as well.
I mean, that would have been an amazing pretrial motion, because then you put that out there, you show the weakness, and then you put the police officers on the stand and they have to answer to this. And, you know, I'm still trying cases. I did a jury last week and I had a police officer admit to me that, yes, evidence helps. Well, gee, go figure. Yes, it does. And so it's amazing. Yeah, it was such an amazing answer. And so, you know, I look at this and I think to myself, these are defense dreams, right? These types of motions, to be able to put this out there and possibly not only cut through evidence, but if you cut through enough evidence that the prosecution can't use, and if a judge tosses it out, or even if the judge doesn't toss it out, you're preserving all these rights on appeal. It just is amazing to me that, given all the other work that they did, and maybe you're right, maybe this comes down to the fact that she realized she was going to have some issues with regard to these leaks, and thought, we better get out of this case as quickly as we can. And if that's the case, that is an injustice to everyone in this case, not only Bryan Kohberger, but everyone.
I will submit to you that the misconduct goes further than just Ann Taylor. It goes to Becca Barlow, it goes to the other attorney, and it goes to their forensic psychologist, who was behaving in a way that is completely improper. And certainly that was my experience with her, but also was the experience of Mr. Kohberger. She was there, instead of in her role as an evaluator, she was doing all kinds of other things that she shouldn't be doing. And I've worked so many death penalty cases. The lines are so very clear about what your role is, what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, the types of communication that you have, difference between treatment and diagnosis, which is a therapeutic position, and then assessment of mental faculty for a forensic assessment, a forensic position. These two areas are in conflict, and you can't have the same person doing both. And so in this case, the lines were so blurred for everybody, myself not included, because I've done this so many times. I protect.
Isn't that a song, Blurred Lines? We need that. That's the theme song, you guys. We found the theme song for the Idaho 4 case. Blurred Lines. Is that the name of it? They also, just because I'm from Cleveland, Witchy, they tore down the house in Cleveland where those girls were held for like decades. Ariel Castro, that house, they tore that one down too.
Myself very carefully, because I anticipate testimony, and I anticipate having to answer questions under oath, and I alone can be held accountable, whereas somebody who's not going to testify, or a lawyer, will not be held to account the same way. So I agree with you. It's a travesty, but I think what I think people need to understand from this is that it is far worse than most people understand. The conduct that was engaged in by the defense team, the conduct that was engaged in by the person who made the leak, depending on who that is, the lack of transparency of the defense team to Mr. Kohberger, and all the other allegations of being coerced. I mean, he's not going to make that allegation unless he has the evidence. And if she's communicating with him over text messages, well, guess what?
Right, exactly. And the real travesty, beyond, obviously locking up somebody if you don't have the proof, but the real travesty too is if let's say that the judge says, you know what, Mr. Kohberger, we're going to let you withdraw your plea. We're going to start this over from the beginning. I mean, the expense alone to the taxpayer to have to do this again would be horrible. I mean, lawyers take oaths. And if you can't trust that your own lawyer is going to do what's best for you.
That's a big question in this case also. How much did the defense claim they spent on this case? Wasn't it like almost $8 million? I know I'm going to quote a wrong number, so don't. I know it was more than $5 million, I believe. I know it was more than $5 million. Can I put this Dr. Turvey clip to play? I know. I probably shouldn't have said that, because that Blurred Line song is like a sexually inappropriate song. We'll find a good one though. We'll find a good one. But oh, I forget what I was saying now. Let me see.
You, or at least put you in a position where you make the decision, right? Here's all the evidence. Here's Dr. Turvey's report. Here's everybody else's findings. Here's what we've discovered. And at the end of the day, they're offering to take the death penalty off the table. Do you want it or not based on the evidence? That's one thing, right?
Okay. I was talking about the cost. I was talking about the expense of the trial. There has been a huge I don't know if I want to say outrage. A lot of people have been questioning, like, what'd you spend the money on? I mean, it doesn't look like Ann Taylor tested anything on her own, did she? I mean, she certainly didn't do her own IgG testing that I have seen. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. She did have an investigator. But there was a lot more money spent on this case than other cases, high profile cases that actually went to trial.
And there's a lot of people who I think should go to trial that sometimes don't because they don't want to take the risk. And that's a decision that clients make. But that is completely different than being put in a position where you're not told about pieces of evidence, or you're not told about strength of evidence, or you're not told about the way experts view evidence. That's a completely separate conversation.
Looks like it.
Yes. So to your first point, let's talk about the money, because that's been covered a lot. And I think it's important for people to understand that the death penalty is expensive. It's one of the reasons why many states stopped doing it, because when you are working a case and you're working, now let me give you full disclosure. My contract was for about 25 grand. That's about $10,000 more than I normally make on a given case. All right. And that's disclosing a lot, because most experts don't like to talk about money. If I worked only for the prosecution, I'd be able to charge between $150,000 and $200,000 per case. I don't do that. I work for either side. The money is not what's important to me. Most of the money is not going to have a lot of money will be spent by the defense, but most of the money will be spent by the state, all right, to try to make their case. I have not seen cases spend this much money in a long time.
No, I didn't even know you didn't talk about this.
This much money for so little result. The money shouldn't even be the conversation. The conversation should be, how did we spend this much money and we still don't have answers from the prosecution, or we have overstated, overcompetent evidence? And I can tell you it's because they basically, handed the investigation and the forensics over to the FBI and let them do it. And just kind of like, well, we don't really know anything about that. We'll let you do it. And the FBI were overconfident and wrote reports that said one thing, and then.
You think the whole, well, that would make sense. The whole case was $8 million, but I did hear her number. I felt like I heard her number, and it was a lot. It was a lot. I thought it was more than the prosecution.
Had to testify in a way that reduced their confidence about the car, about the DNA, about how people were found, about the cell tower stuff. I mean, it's all just too disgusting. Again, it's disgusting for me to spend this amount of money and not have straight answers from anybody on the state side. Everybody having to reduce themselves. They took this very 100% posture of guilt, and then you get them under oath, and all of a sudden it's 70%, maybe 80%. I don't know. So there is the money issue. Yeah, but the money issue, when you are morally certain that the death penalty is the right thing for your state, it's going to cost you, because we do not put people to death in this country when we think that they might be innocent. All right. That's a rule. Sure. I mean, we don't kill innocent people, right? We can agree with that, I hope. We don't
I don't know about that.
So in the search for truth,
we try not to.
Resources will be expended, not just money, but time and effort and emotions and all that good stuff. So that's the first thing. What I would expect is if Hippler says, I'm going to grant it for you, let's start over. Great. Let's get a real death qualified attorney that actually has experience working in death penalty trials. Not somebody who's a dealer who knows how to make a plea and has maybe worked a couple cases. I mean, somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Because this is a case where now everybody's sort of on the line. The second thing is,
I wish she would have asked him about a private attorney. Bryan needs Kevin Reddington. Kevin Reddington, are you listening? Bryan needs a, and I'm just going to clarify now because I know people are going to say, oh, you love Bryan Kohberger and you just want him to get out. No, there is evidence that the prosecution has not disclosed all of the evidence that the defendant, I don't care who it is, could use to defend themselves. And that requires a snarky, aggressive, highly intelligent, experienced attorney to deal with. There you go. Clip that.
If anybody, anybody on the side of the state or the defense has engaged in misconduct, they have opened themselves up to litigation and lawsuits. I worked on a case in Connecticut. What was it? Versus Birch and Henning.
Oh, yeah.
Birch and Henning case. These were it was a home invasion where the only evidence in the case was DNA from blood alleged to have been found on a towel. That was the only evidence, all right, in the whole case. And I did the examination of that evidence in the case, and I found that the expert in that case had falsified that item. And that case went all the way to the Supreme Court of Connecticut. That expert was Henry Lee, my mentor. Now, what happened?
Wow.
He got sued personally, and he got sued to the tune of $30 million, and he lost. He refused to show up to defend himself. He knew what he had done. He had dry labbed this result for the police. There was a bunch of other cases that were going on at the same time where the same allegations were being made. But this was back in 2011.
He turned in his mentor. Brent Turvey don't care, man. Brent Turvey doesn't care. Hi, Jenna. Oh, man, Jenna, when you get a chance, go back and rewatch this because I think all of our commentary and comments and everything was so great about this with this interview. Yeah, his mentor, who he was trained by, probably respected, looked up to, spent a lot of time with, did something illegal, and Brent Turvey called it out. Brent Turvey is showing, not telling, showing that he's a man that, is convicted and wants to do the right thing. Happy you're here, Jenna.
So when experts lie, there should be consequences. And in many states there are.
Sure,
when
just
lawyers
like police
lie
or anybody. Yes, absolutely.
There should be consequences. And that's a separate.
It's a shame that we have to say that there should be consequences because there's not. There's not. Well, I mean, his mentor got fined heavily, but I mean, I think there's been instances where people have perjured themselves on the stand. Look at that lady who got in trouble in Colorado, I think it is, one of those states out there, for either forging or with all the DNA that she did, she intentionally messed up all the DNA in all these murder cases. I don't even think she's going to get, I don't even know if she'll get time in prison. If she does, not very long. Yeah, Colorado, they just, I don't know, slap on the wrist.
Conversation. What I'm concerned about is people have already kind of decided, well, he's guilty, so he's done. He already said he was guilty. Again, 1/3 of defendants who are investigated by the innocent.
Darth Turvey, that's another one. I nicknamed him Brent. Let me tell you something, Turvey. And his logo is scorched earth.
Project are found to have been wrongfully convicted. 1/3 of them were coerced by their defense attorneys. This is a common concept. I am so grateful to you as an attorney, as a criminal justice professional, that you and I can meet, regardless of the side that we take,
Yeah, good
on this
for
very
her.
even plane of, hey, we don't do that. We let the client decide. You give them my job is to educate attorneys educate the client, and my job then becomes maybe educate the court, maybe educate the jury, but ultimately there's a trier of fact that's going to come in and make a decision. And we want them to have the best and fullest and most complete set of information that exists. You and I can agree on that without getting mad at each other. That's not the world we live in
Absolutely.
right now. Nobody wants anybody to have a fair shake. Nobody wants anybody to the truth to come out. People decide who the monsters are, and then they go down that road instead of doing the investigation.
It's interesting you say that, because just this last week I did a jury, and it was an attempted murder case, and the client had another lawyer for the first 7 years that his case was pending. And we came in, and I think in about 8 months decided to take the case to trial. And this guy was trying to push this guy to take a deal every which way from Sunday. And we came in and I talked to him about that deal, and I talked to him about why it was less of a risk, because it was much less.
All right, I'm going to put this on 1.5 speed because I just don't want to hear all their personal stories. But because there's like, I don't know, 6 minutes left. 6 minutes. 125. We'll do that.
Time than he would serve if he lost. But at the end of the day, he has a right to have his day in court. And we tried that case, and that jury came back in about 4.5 hours with a not guilty. So, you have to be able to, and for clients that say, I did not do this, I am actually innocent, and I want to have my day in court, then they're willing to take a risk.
That's exactly right. If you have somebody who's guilty and they get a good plea deal, they're going to take it. Right. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
That sets up a stereotype. And if you apply that stereotype or that caricature of a defendant to Bryan Kohberger, you're going to miss all the important information and facts and details underneath the surface that are going on.
See, that's exactly what happened. So he just said, when you have a client who is guilty, they know they're guilty, and they get a plea deal, and they know, hey, if I go to court and I'm found guilty, I'm going to do life in prison. But they're telling me if I admit that I'm guilty and take this plea deal, they'll give me, 50 years or 40 years or something. They're going to take the plea deal because they're like, I don't even want to chance it because I know I'm guilty. And all of America, all of the world, the majority of people that have not looked at any details of this case, that's what they see. That's what they think when it comes to plea deals.
That he has not been talking about. Like I said, he's been a good client as far as I can tell, by virtue of doing what he was told, as well as his family, and keeping their mouths shut.
Talk to me a little bit about the hair that was found in Ethan Chapin's hand. I know we talked about this originally. This is something that's gotten a lot of communication online and otherwise, and that the hair did not match Bryan Kohberger's, but there's some inconclusive facts out there. And again, because the prosecutors really didn't answer, and because Kohberger didn't allocate, there's still a lot of questions surrounding that hair. The police are saying it was tested, it wasn't Kohberger's, that it was Chapin's himself. Now, is that true, or do we have no idea who that hair belongs to?
Nobody who's under oath is saying that, and no report says that it belongs to Ethan. That is where our world exists. So anybody who's saying these is guessing. They're saying maybe it's in, maybe it's not. Just like Ann Taylor and her team said, they asked me, what if it belongs to somebody in the house? I'm like, well, maybe it does. We need to find out who that is and how it got in his hand, right?
Exactly.
Because that would wreck the timeline. Well, let's talk about what does exist, okay? The hair, my first encounter was the hair on the bed frame. And it was like probably 20, 30 strands, about that long, coming off the bed frame, attached in blood on the bed frame with Ethan's in the sort of imprint of Ethan's
20,
hand.
30 strands, that's a lot. Yeah.
It's way more than that. Okay, so but that's what I could see. I can show you the pictures right now if you want. But the pictures of the hair on the bed frame and that are also,
I just put it on normal speed. He said it's probably 20 to 30 strands. Oh, and it might be more than that. And he's talking about those hairs. It is a chop. I mean, you can see it in the photos. It's thick.
attached to the wall is even more. There's even a bigger clump from what's on the bed frame attached to the wall. When they pulled it away, there's a nice little streak of blood. When they pulled it away, there's hair attached to the wall.
Oh, you guys, we're going to be looking at those crime scene photos. We got to go back to those photos and look at that. Not tonight. On another episode, we will.
And sealed to the wall with blood. And it's even more than that amount of hair. Then we have the hair that's in his hand. The phone was taken at the crime scene. Okay, so there's 3 different photos. So anybody who has not looked at all the evidence and who is speaking on issues that they don't know anything about because they're not a reconstructionist or not a forensic scientist, anybody who's saying that those hairs doesn't exist, it means that they haven't looked at the evidence and aren't aware of what's going on in the case. They viewed the case through their very narrow aperture. I did crime scene analysis and reconstruction, which means my hands were in everything. All right, so those photographs exist, and not only that, they were leaked online. There are people that have put these photographs online and put them into nice collages for everybody to see.
So for those of you that don't remember, they say that those photos were leaked because when they first started, Idaho State Police, Moscow Police Department put their reports online for everybody to get. Then the Idaho State Police released, I don't know if they did the photos first or their reports first or however, but they did like 3 different batches or 4 different batches of photos. Remember that? And one of the batches like had all the like victim room crime scene photo images. And I guess they weren't supposed to be uploaded, and someone uploaded them. And then they immediately took them down. But we had, like, I saved them. I got that. I have those saved, those original ones when they did that, because they weren't up there long. So that's what I believe that's what he's talking about.
The first photos are clear is, do they exist? Yes. Then when the police wrote a report about it, it was described in the autopsy report and the police reports as debris in his hands. There was no debris in his hands. Yes. It was just human hair, right? A clump of it in his hands, then some stuck to the bed frame and then some stuck to the wall.
Oh, see, I was wrong. I was wrong earlier. So hopefully everybody watching this on replay makes it all the way to the end. He is doubling down that there was a clump in his hand, a chunk, I won't say chunk, but he said 20 to 30 strands on the bed frame and more on the wall. I'm telling you, we will look at those photos because I know what he's talking about. Like, I think I know, and I've always thought it's one of those pictures where you're like, your brain doesn't register what you're looking at. Like, what am I, because we don't see things like that. I don't want to see things like that. But we want the truth to come out.
That hair was of such significance that they sent it off to the FBI lab, who looked at it under a microscope and said, these hairs do not share similar characteristics. Therefore, there's no DNA testing needed to be done. And Bryan Kohberger is excluded. These are the facts. These are not Brent Turvey's speculations. This is what exists on the record. Now, have you heard anything about that? Other than through me? No. No one wants to talk about it.
No one wants to talk about it. He's saying that the hairs didn't match Bryan Kohberger and the hairs didn't match each other, I think is what he was saying. That's what it sounded like.
Why? Because it would upend the case. It would upend everything. It would change everything we think about the timeline, the narrative, the interaction, who was in what room. But there's other evidence. There's down in the first floor bedroom, we have the jacket that didn't get collected or tested properly. We have a bloody bracelet that was on the floor that got picked up and moved by.
One thing I'm going to say about that jacket, and then we're going to be wrapping this up. There's only a few more minutes left of this. That jacket, I don't think anybody thinks it's a very flattering jacket. Like, it's green with pink flowers on it. I think, I was going to look this up and I haven't done it yet, but weren't the colors, like every sorority and fraternity has colors associated with it? Wasn't Alpha Phi pink and green? Anybody in the chat out there know, are Alpha Phi's colors pink and green? That's the only thing I thought of with that jacket. Like, was it an Alpha Phi jacket? I'm not saying it is, I'm asking.
Police and put on one of the desks and ignored and not collected. We have many different items of evidence like that that weren't exactly examined or considered in the timeline because they got lost or forgotten or just plain ignored because they didn't fit the narrative. I come back to the same thing every time. When you want to know what happened, you examine the evidence. When you want to know what the truth is, you pursue that evidence to find out whose it is, how it got there, conditions of transfer, and what that means for the entirety of the reconstruction of the case. And there's not a real interest in doing that. In fact, they were so disinterested in doing that that they demolished the house. I never even heard of that before, where you demolished the house.
I know, me neither.
And then they created this 3D model of it that
when they were going to tear down that house, I was dumbfounded that nobody went out there to protest. Like nobody. Like people went out there to witness it, but no, if I was one of those parents, I would have chained myself to the house. Like ask Carlos. I literally would chain myself to the house. I think Carlos would verify that. I would be like, no. I don't get it. I don't understand why everybody was okay with it.
I went out again to examine and took my photographs and did a 3D scan of it. It doesn't even match the interior of the house. It's full of incorrect access, incorrect sizes. It's a big sign there, not to scale. They wanted to use it as a trial exhibit. Didn't have anything in it. Didn't have anything to do with the case. Just an approximation of maybe what the house might have looked like inside. We're not sure.
I'm going to say that I feel like no matter which way you fall on this, right? Whether you think Bryan Kohberger did it, whether you think he didn't do it, no matter what you think, I think everyone that's paid attention to this case has always wanted to see a trial here, because a trial was either going to expose that there was or there wasn't enough evidence, and a trial could potentially answer the question, why or how. And so no matter how you feel about this, no one got those answers. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what Judge Hippler does and see if we ever get those answers. But no matter what happens, I'm sure, Dr. Turvey, I will want to talk to you about it. So I hope you'll be back with me, and I thank you so much.
All right, guys, we got to keep an eye on her channel for him to be back. He might just be coming back to give updates. So I don't know. She's associated with Fox News. I think a local Fox station. I'm not sure, but you know, maybe it'll creep up the chain to get a more broad audience to be hearing this kind of stuff. It's important. It's important. Wow. All right. So I wrote a list of words real quick. Here's the words Brent Turvey used. He's relieved that Bryan took his plea back. He called the case disgusting. He said the defense team got fired. So he relieved, disgusted, fired, suppressed. Bryan Kohberger was suppressed by Ann Taylor. Unethical. The defense avoids trial when they have a high chance of being unethical. He used the word grotesque several times, talking about the public, talking about the family. He used the word perjury. That was so powerful that not only can law enforcement and get on the stand or a witness, and if they lie, they perjure themselves. You think about that. Bryan Kohberger got on the stand and perjured himself. He lied, right? He said tampering with evidence, that there was tampering with evidence. He called things illegal, like the chain of custody was illegal. And I can't make sense of the last one, but wow, that was great. She did in 45 minutes what most podcasters couldn't do in like 4 hours. Well, yeah, she had his undivided attention, and I don't think there's any prying. You're not prying information out of Brent Turvey. Brent Turvey's blowing it through the, he's scorching earth with his information, okay? Yes, thank you for spending the evening with us. I usually don't do evening shows, but this was nice. I saw you guys in Discord writing things about the Lindsay Clancy case, and let me invite everybody who is listening on replay or in chat right now. If you don't know anything about the Lindsay Clancy trial that is happening right now, if you want to get caught up fast, watch TikToks or YouTube shorts. It is the probably most trending thing right now. This trial was supposed to be a nothing burger. This was a woman who allegedly admitted to killing her children. And they were just going to trial to figure out, you know, what was going to be her consequences. It has turned into half the internet like defending this woman, and it looks like the husband is suspicious. So if you like those types of cases, you can get caught up quickly because there's so many shorts out there about it. So get caught up. And then tomorrow I've been streaming the trial. So we're going to do that again tomorrow. That's the plan. You want me to do that? I'll see what I could do, Duckman. I'll see what I could do. G-Bean, you the best. And shout out to all my mods who were in here. I saw you all in here at one point or another. I know it was spontaneous anyways, so I love and appreciate all of you. Thanks, Lavs. Appreciate you. Have a wonderful night. I think Dylan might be live right now. I think Dago's live right now again with Logan. So I'm going to go over and catch those guys. And I'll see you guys back here at 9 a.m. tomorrow for the Lindsay Clancy trial. All right. I am clocking out for now. Bye, guys.
Thanks for watching, hope you felt the spark. Please hit that like before it gets dark. Subscribe, it's free and keeps us going strong. You're part of the crew now, right where you belong. Join us next time, same truth, same fire. We bring the heat and never tire. We're typically unique and proud to be a husband and wife in podcast harmony. That could be unique, yeah, that's you and me. Don't forget to like and hit subscribe, it's free. Come back again, we'll be right here with truth and laughs and zero fear. We don't always agree, but that's the show. One love, two minds, letting it flow. We dig deep with crack jokes, we called it like we see. If that's your vibe, you belong here with me. We don't always agree, but that's the show. One love, two minds, letting it flow. We dig deep with crack jokes, we call it like we see. If that's your vibe, you belong here with me. We don't always agree, but you felt the spark. Please hit that like before it gets dark. We dig deep with crack jokes, we call it like we see. If that's your vibe, you belong here with me. Thanks for watching, hope you felt the spark. Please hit that like before it gets dark. Please hit that like before it gets dark. It's free, it keeps us going strong. You're part of the crew, now right where you belong. Join us next time, same truth, same fire. We bring the heat and never tire. We're typically unique and proud to be a husband and wife and proud to be a husband and wife in podcast harmony. Yeah, that's you and me, that's you and me. Don't forget to like, hit subscribe, it's free. Come back again, we'll be right here with truth and laughs and zero fear.